I came to this event actually 2 editions ago, so I came to be the creative director in 2012. So from the 3rd edition, which was as much as thrilling as a challenge, because like you gain the kind of like surprise effect and the novelty effect of being like a design week, a design events from a place like China, but then you have to eventually really perform or make your own name, or a way a positioning or carve a placement for it within this plethora of design biennales, architecture events, and etc around the world. So my personal question was, having been like in China for more than a decade, was how to really make it relevant for publics and professionals. So we had to make a choice. Do we want to encourage like a logic and the sort of a syntax of design as this sort of like prepackaged like finished good type of delivery like of content, or do we want to try to actually let the context formulate its own understanding and fill in its own meaning within what design might mean in a like in a megalopolis of the 21st century like Beijing. We went for this second option, and which is of course not the easiest option, because it means you have to open up a dialogue with different counterparts that are involved in this process, and this is not about creating sort of like a small enclave, like, or a state of exception, or an event that can kind of like talk to itself, that would have made no impact truly, like to also try to communicate what really is design, like in the 21st century, beyond what it might mean in Beijing. So it was a quite challenging task, and we were the event was already structured as urban series, a set of projects and interventions, rather than being concentrated, as customarily it is, around like a fairground, as it is in many, like Western and more established like contexts where design, a form of design culture is established. So Design Week has grown in the past 4 years in really operating, let's say it started as a sort of like as a conversation starter and to become placemaker. The efforts that we have been trying to, like put in place were those of like trying to make our collaborators forge their own goal and understanding of how they could contribute by way of a very large public platforms like ours that gives us access, quite an unlimited access to media outlets, to the public, to the city, to public spaces, like to areas of Beijing that might be more or less known, and together with it, with the extant communities that live there. So in the past few years, the efforts, that we put in place were really those of trying to make them part of the game. Essentially, an event kind of strives, but is also burdened, by its own limited temporality. At the end of the day, we are a 2-week event, and that's how much, like we can put our efforts into. But what we wanted to do was to turn Design Week in a form of like temporary manifestation of an ongoing process that was already involving all of these various stakeholders. So we work with selected iconic areas of Beijing, historical districts, commercial, like centers, malls, artistic villages. Essentially, what we have tried to do is to make the content really be driven by the context. So rather than filling up square meters of spaces, we have really tried to create tasks and goals that were completely determined, like to bring some benefit or some added value or some ulterior vision to how and what design could have done, in these specific contexts. So some of these experiments have been successful more than others. At the end of the day, I believe that what is what embodies, you know, our efforts is really like the creation of a sort of like group of like-minded people, and this can vary from government, you know, like counterparts, or, you know, like planners, entrepreneurs, companies, individuals, as much both local and international. The mediation of this conversation is also happening simultaneously on trying to coalesce, you know, these forces that are already present, active and very productive in the context, while offering, you know, the right conduit for others that want to come in and contribute. And essentially, it is a very public event. I mean, we have a very, you know, we have very big numbers. We kind of like run the event also in conjunction with the national holidays, so we also kick into, you know, like the big influx of people that come to Beijing, you know, for the holidays. But that is a way of also moderating, you know, like, and delivering our message both to professional audiences and clusters as well as the very general public.